it's time to join the neck to the body. That means I have to pay very special attention to this surface of the heel because it controls the angle both this way and this way. Now, in previous builds I have used this, a sanding board. I stand up the neck and lean into the corner or end where I want most of the wood to be taken off and grind it along. And that allows me to get the angle and indeed the surface just right. But I've come to realise that the more elite a woodworker becomes, the more they will turn away from sandpaper in favour of the blade. So I thought to myself, should I have a go at using a shooting board and hand plane to prepare the surface of the heel for where it meets the body? And then I remembered that Brandon Flowers and the Killers once, almost but not quite, sang about this very issue.
If you know enough to even ask the question, you already know the answer.
But then it occurred to me, most hand planes are wide enough to easily handle a heel like this. But what if somebody were to ask me to build a 5-string bass? Those have a wider neck and a wider heel, and I don't think a hand plane would be able to do the job unless it were a number 8. Those things are absolutely huge. So I bought one. But, I hear you ask, do you have the stones to use it? As a matter of fact, I do. So let's give it a go. The first thing I notice is that, despite my best efforts, this surface on the end of the body is not perpendicular to the centre line of the guitar. Now, there's two choices here. We can correct the body, or we can put that error into the line on the neck, or we can split it halfway. I can't correct it entirely because it's going to make this bindings line look a bit wrong. It should, of course, have been done earlier. That's much closer and represents a better target for us to aim for on the heel. Stretching this piece of string and wiggling the neck back and forth like this tells me I'm going to need to take off about 0.5 millimetre along the treble side of the heel. And when I gingerly position everything and press the heel against the body with the line of the top of the neck and the top of the body the same, it makes a V. And if I put this 1.6mm nail in the gap, it fills the gap perfectly, so the V is about 1.6mm. Now this rule, edge to edge, is about 320 mils, so half of that is 160, and this here is 110. So multiplying 1 by 6 by 110 divided by 160 equals, it's 1.1, which will have to be taken off the bottom of the heel. This is my first attempt at the shooting board. The fence has quite a few degrees of freedom due to oversized holes, These bolts can be tightened up very seriously because I kind of over-engineered things by welding them to a piece of steel bar. This angle will be the amount that we are taking off the bottom of the heel, while the amount we take off from one side or the other of the heel will be controlled by this angle here as we clamp the neck to the fence. I've put a little piece of masking tape here because the neck is tapered, and if I have that piece of masking tape just visible, I've calculated that that means that the centre line of the neck is perfectly horizontal. Now I want to take off 0.5 millimetre of the bottom part. So that means I have to make this bit stick out, which means I have to rotate it like so. And I've calculated that I need to rotate it by allowing 2.5 millimetres of this masking tape to show. So that's sorted. Now I want to take off 1.1 millimetres like this. So to have it stick out so that this end sticks out further, I have calculated that the fence needs to be 2.9 millimetres further in from this edge here than it is here. So let's clamp that up. Actually, not so fast. We're going to be planing end grain, and when the plane reaches the end here, I don't want it to splinter off and tear out these little bits of wood. So I'm going to clamp something sacrificial to support these so that as we plane it, we get a nice clean cut. We've got a bit of a cavity here, which is also going to be subject to tear out, so I might try and just kind of wedge something in there to protect that. I've got some little bits of support to jam in there. Hopefully that will be enough. Just want to check that I'm taking the finest possible shavings imaginable. That piece of packing is sticking out too much, messing with the angle. Can we deal with that? It's doing something. Not very much. Should dial in a bit more blade. That's too much. It's certainly working though. Definitely need to dial it back. It's also tearing the end grain, which is not good. That was a good cut. Gave up at the last second. Missing the top, once again, it's for that packing business which hasn't been sliced away. It's the lateral adjustment of the blade. We're getting progressively clean cuts in revealing this rough area receding on that diagonal that we expect. But we're proud of the sideboard there, and we're still not cutting the way I think we should. It does seem that that lateral adjustment is kind of working itself. Maybe the blade is not tight enough. That's a bit too violent. Much better sound. The fact that we can do this is pretty impressive. I think I'm about ready to stop. A little bit rough there. And the bad news is that somehow my calculations must not have been quite right. We took too much off that amount and not enough off that amount. So there's still a bit of a dip like that, and now it's too far over to the other side. So we're going to go back and do it again. New rule, always measure, never calculate. This is very, very close laterally. It is also very, very close across the fingerboard join. I'm going to make a very minor adjustment on the sanding board. That is very, very close to the centre line all the way through. And if I hold this tight enough, I can get a lovely flat line there, no gaps. And a lovely flat line there. I think we're going to need a little bit of sanding to make that work perfectly, but it is very, very good, and it can't be improved by any more work on this surface. Now there's just along this edge, that end grain tear out problem. It's just made a very small issue. It's not going to be noticed in the finished guitar, but it is something that I'd like to get to the bottom of. The rest of it is pretty good indeed. So let's wrap up. This shooting board with its adjustable fence and this monstrous plane, which is really a collector's item and not the sort of modern plane that every woodworker would like to have performed very well, but not perfectly. The rule is definitely measure, don't calculate. And I would like to get to the bottom of why some of this planing was beautiful and smooth and others was plagued by end grain tear out. I will certainly keep using it, but until I get a little bit more in control of what's going on, I will use it to get almost where I need to be and finish on the sanding board.